Couple of things about EVO this year. I'm not going to Vegas or Japan or whatever. I'm not attending the EVO events given the buyout that they had. But I figured I'd chat a little bit about this because of the news that it implies. Like, first and foremost, no Tokon means it's not going to be out before June 26th to the 28th in 2026, correct? I would assume that Avatar is not out, but they kind of cut down and expanded at the same time, right? They have 12 total games, which is an expansion from 8, but then they cut down the extended lineup. Now there's just 12 games, and I don't know what their BYOC or like hosting other tournaments at the event situation is like, or if community tournaments get the same support as before. But as far as like the extra games, like VSAV, HNK, like all this stuff, Vampire Savior, it's another Capcom throwback game. The other thing is, I don't know how to say this nicely, but some of these game choices seem like they're more for fanfare than like what people are actually maybe playing. They're like PR picks kind of more than they are like logical. These are the largest scenes that we can serve in our communities. I'm kind of surprised that we're doing Darkstalkers. It's like not a big game over like stuff that is like more popular here in the West, like Exord, for example. And even Virtua Fighter. I guess Virtua Fighter being run over and over and over is because like they're gonna have a new Virtua Fighter game and like they have a relationship with Sega. It's not a huge pull in terms of numbers, but it's basically marketing for the new game. If Capcom announces and is working on a new Vampire Savior game, and this is like the tease that it's coming out, then that makes sense to do, I guess, right? To like have this as the throwback game. But yeah, otherwise it kind of feels like a tee, look at us, like aren't we cool for running Vampire? That's kind of how I feel about HNK also. Like HNK as an official tournament at EVO is like very the sort of appeal I think for this game for most people is that it's like a sort of goofy, unbalanced, wild game. So you like watch the HNK tournament every year because it's like funny and like goofy in the environment that it exists in. But as like a sweaty competitive game, this game being run like first to 2 standard in like a tournament versus being run as like a fun 5v5 tournament for the year with no prizing is like a very different kind of environment. You know, it's kind of like how, you know how Third Strike is where you watch the co-op cups where you have like all the different teams and it's like very goofy and fun and like they're doing fun stuff of like all character teams. You get to watch Q's and Hayao on Hugo and stuff like that versus like if you're playing that shit for money, it's like Chun versus Chun, Yun versus Chun, Yun versus Yun. Maybe it can. And I think this game will be kind of like that as like a viewing experience for EVO. Once you just cut to the sweat of it, it has less of an appeal. Thoughts on No MK? Yeah, Vegas. I mean, the vibe around that game is like down tremendous. I'm not surprised. I don't even think NRS fans are that surprised. Yeah, I also saw that for early reg for EVO Japan, there's like 15 or 1600 for Street Fighter 6, and then the next game, I think it's like Tekken has like 100 or something, or whatever the second game is like 100, and then the third game's like 2x KO with like 80. That is dire to me. Like, we don't play anything else? Like, we only are playing Street Fighter? I'm doing this. I'm like, ooh, that feels a little doomed. Vegas also won't be like that. Like, Street Fighter will be huge, but like some of the other games will have quite big brackets. The other thing is like EVO itself. You know, I've been going to EVO since 2014, and I'm not going now because of the buyout. And before you like type anything, I'm like, yeah, man, if the US Army bought EVO, I would also not go. If you're like, oh, there's a lot of evil corporations out there, you know, Twitch, which is owned by Amazon. Amazon's the evil ass company. Evil corporations purchasing or owning the things you like always sucks. But the difference, I think, for most people here is the purpose of the ownership and then what exactly they're doing with it. It's not just like the Saudi government owns EVO. It's like the Saudi government owns EVO and lots of other things with the express intention of using these as a vehicle. They promote tourism and sports wash. And like, they're not investing in these things because they just like believe in them as a capital. It's like divesting because of oil and sports washing to gain social capital, right? They try to get you to go to Baseland. You gotta pull up and check out Mr. Baseland. It's a pretty big deal for me as a human. I don't think it'll affect EVO at all. I don't think they care. But I've been doing the finals for EVO like every year. I've done it for Street Fighter and Dragon Ball and Strive and now Street Fighter 6, and I think it's very likely if I went this year I would do Street Fighter or 2XKO finals, and so now I'm just not going to be there. I just will not be doing that. And EVO is a lot of the real estate of the community, and it is bad for business. It's bad for me financially not to attend. It means I'm not going to EVO Vegas. It means I'm not going to EVO France. Means I'm not going to EVO Singapore. It means when they open the one up in Saudi Arabia, eventually, I'm sure I'm not going to be going to that one. And each EVO attending it has like big value as a commentator because whenever I go, I like get paid. And then I also get paid to do other things there on the show floor. I also get to try out characters early or things early or like meet with developers. That has like a big hit on my content and channels and stuff because like I can't do that. And even things like, you know, I have a deal with Chipotle. part of my deal with Chipotle is like attending EVO and doing activations. So like when I renegotiate with brands at the end of the year and they're like, we want to do stuff with fighting games, and I'm like, cool, I'm down. I'm not going to be at EVO. That could affect me potentially getting a renegotiation on like my partnership with Chipotle, which is a year-long deal that is a big part of my income. So for me, I'm just looking for other events to attend. Instead of going to EVO, what other events can I like plug into my calendar for the year? So I'm starting with Frosty. I'm going to go to Frosty in January. But then like what other events are happening in the year that are not EVO adjacent that I can like head to and check out? The weird thing about doing these kinds of things, like not accepting things like this though, is that the first thought on everybody's mind is like, well, you live in the US and like the US sucks. I'm like, I agree with you. The same team, like, yeah. And they're like, if the US government did, and I'm like, yeah, I would also not go if the US government did this. And it's like, well, what, you know, Riot Games is part owned by Tencent, which is the Chinese government, and the Chinese government does bad things. I'm like, I agree. The Chinese government started trying to sports wash in the same way and like had ads for their Super City and then like purchased EVO. I would also not go. Like I would probably be like, well, that sucks, and then just not attend. Like the weird thing is that instead of just being like, oh, bet, and then knowing like you can just not engage and I'll enjoy the said thing, it's like, how do I justify my engagement with the thing that you're not doing to make me feel better about myself as a human? Like, I'm not telling you to feel bad about yourself as a human. Like, no one gets flamed for going. I personally am not going, but like plenty of people will. There's plenty of people who don't like the buyout who are like, well, I'm still going to EVO, fuck it. And I'm sure they'll have a dope time. Like, if I went, I'm sure I would have a dope time. I doubt that EVO will change much now, or like in the next half a year or so, but like it'll happen over time. The people there will either get pushed away or the things they care about will get violated too many times and they'll slowly leave. And then eventually you're left with like a group of people with less attachment or are too jaded to fight for the things the community cares about, and then they'll just be gone. And then like you just get what you get. I tell you this as someone who's accepted that this is the inevitability of it within X amount of time. It's not like I told you so. Like it's like this is how these things work. Many times in my life, I've been called a sellout or like a shill. But as someone who extremely often does not accept the money, I'm fucking pissed that EVO just like gets sold to the Saudi government. And we got sold to Sony before, which is like its own thing that, you know, the community has to deal with. But like the purpose of our events and community is that we are grassroots and we do things in person. And the fighting game events and tours are tacked on to what the fighting game community owns. Street Fighter has to go to a grassroots owned event to put the event on their tour. And like they own Capcom Cup at the end, which we accept and we work with them and that kind of stuff. But like the equity in the community is built on supporting your own scene by putting money into the organizers and events that are owned by your own community. That's the pillar of what makes fighting games unique, and that we're separated from a lot of the problems that other esports scenes have because of like the VC bubble and crypto, and now Saudi is buying things up, and when Saudi gets bored it'll be AI investors or what, like there'll be something. When you do get bought up by another place, you reap the consequences. Whoever owns it getting bored and selling you off to some other place that doesn't want to spend money on you, or whatever the issue is that may come with it. And people who have been in the community for 20, 30, whatever years, who know like what fighting games are supposed to be about, happily take the money from these kinds of buyouts. And I don't, but I'm the sellout. Another day, another dollar. Am I right, fellas? Oftentimes, I am sympathetic to other commentators when they lose gigs. I gotta be the most losingest when it comes to like not going to EWCs, because I got invited to go to Gamers 8, you know, and like EWC and stuff. Not attending EVO now, getting banned from Capcom for rightfully flaming the way they handled their tournament in 2019 and their netcode, turning down the army events like that they had a while ago. I went and did one and I was like, I'm not working for the army, bro. Someone else will get my spot. I don't have any resentment towards whoever gets it, but it is a shame because obviously I'd like to go there, and like the quality of the matches and like the prestige of commentating those level of matches and the play that goes into an event like this is a big deal. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge money loss for me. People say that about me. They say I don't need the money, which is why I'm not going. But the money would be way more impactful for me than all of these rich comedians or sports stars or entertainment people who go. Yeah, did you see? There was a huge comedy festival in Riyadh. The thing that's crazy to me about someone like Bill Burr doing this, I think about this all the time when I see huge streamers take gambling sponsorships or like just morally questionable deals to do things. Like Bill Burr does not need more money, right? They have money to offer you because the social and like community hit you get for going is bad. What does that person gain? Bill Burr cannot buy something now that he couldn't buy before he went. So like, what does he gain? I don't get it. One of the biggest things that pisses me off about all the buyouts already is that Capcom and their Pro Tour, and so is Tekken, right? They're pretty deeply interlinked with EWC already, but they're so blatantly cool with just devaluing their own events. There was no fight. They just made Capcom Cup like EWC 2. So Capcom Cup, it's not even a unique event from EWC in format really. And then they like have a worse prize split and it makes their event just look worse, right? Like that's the idea is part of this whole buyout is make everything else worse or not as cool as the big event in Saudi Arabia so that everything takes you there. Like you win Capcom Cup, you qualify for EWC. And it's so blatant, but the more funny thing is how everybody's just like, okay. We just like cannibalized Capcom Cup so that it could be a worse version of EWC just like that. Like it's just so outrageous, is it not? Like where's the spine? There's no fight. Like nobody cares. They're just like, oh yeah, well, let's chill. Like it's fucking disgusting. I'm actually less mad at them buying out everything. I'm more mad at how easily everybody just rolls over. I'm impressed that it was so effortless. The only nice thing about fighting games outside of this is that you can always build new grassroots events. Can you build something up to be the size of EVO, or like would you even be interested in doing it? I'm not sure that most people would, but like in our current era, I fear we simply do not have enough regional events that will spawn and then grow to the size of majors, which will then spawn to like grow to be the size of this with how the current landscape is. Everything is very expensive. It's really hard to kickstart new events. They cost lots of money and you need sponsorships and people to buy in for that kind of stuff. And like you need attendees to pay for things. A lot of our regional events are just gone and dead now. And the other problem with the current system of EWC qualifiers and Pro Tour qualifiers that exist, unless your spot on the calendar lands within those qualifiers and the tour dates, people will not want to go. And if pro players don't want to come to the event, it's harder to get the draw of like eyeballs, interest, sponsors, and then other people who want to attend because there's strong competition. If international travel is too expensive, then international players don't want to come, etc. Right? Like it's really hard to run events. Maybe next year is the year I become a traveling commentator again and I just don't go to EVO. Whatever majors are happening that are not EVO next year, I'm super down to go. So if any of them want to hit me up, I'm down to pull up. What's up, Boot? What you doing, Boot? How are you, Boot? It's on camera. You know what he really likes is ribbons.